Well, one of the themes that came out of Vatican II that the cardinals and bishops and all the other people involved with that council and ends up in the writings of Vatican II was to look at the signs of the times with the eyes of faith. So I try to do that. I don't know if y'all ever noticed. I'm probably not very good at it, but I try to connect the things that we see in life in the last several decades and then what's going on today, and I try to make sense of it. I probably end up just repeating myself with the same examples over and over again. At least I've noticed that I do that a lot. But so I want to, there's a little bit of that today. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that that's something that the church wants us to be doing. You know, as Christians in the world, we should be looking at the signs of the times, what's going on in our culture, our society, and how does our faith, affect that? How can it affect it? How can it better be lived out in the midst of the world we live in? So there was a very obscure song, I don't know how many people actually know it, that came out like in the 60s or 70s. I was not alive. I was only in the mind of God at the time, so I don't know for sure. But some of you might have been alive, and so maybe you came across it. Again, I don't know. It's very obscure, but I have learned of it since then. I wanted to just use it as maybe a little bit of a starter of an example today. So it goes, all you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love, love. Love is all you need. So maybe you've heard that song before. But I don't know if this song inspired some people at the time, but there was some phrases that maybe was born around that time also, and one of them that was, I think, popular for a certain sect of society was, you just gotta love, man. And I think they even kind of said it like that, with those emphases. And then when I was in seminary, and so some of our formators, grew up during that time as well, and they really emphasized this point. At least one of our professors in particular liked to remind us, and it was really to help us, I think, be more compassionate to people, especially in the confessional. That our job and what Jesus summarized was to love. Ultimately, to love our enemy, to be good to those who persecute us, and to love well. And that when we get to our final judgment, when we're before the Father, what He's going to measure and ask us is, how well did we love while we were here on this earth? And so, God only judges the things that we love. And so the church doesn't exactly, we do promote that that's really important. And then to help us with that is where our theology, our tradition, our morality, canon law, and what most of the world and a lot of Catholics even call our rules. Those rules are in place to help us love better. So you can look at every little things we might struggle with or disagree with, but if you look at why the church teaches that or says that that's good for us, it's to help us love ourselves better, to help love our spouse better, to help us love the world better, our neighbor better. And if we truly try to understand what the church is saying, you'll come to discover that that's true. It's not to restrict us from living the life we want to live. It's trying to help you and warn you. We've seen this for 2,000 years. This thing does not do anything good for you or for your family or for your neighbor, your community, for your society. And so the rules we have, if that's what we want to call them, are there to assist us in love, because the great Thomas Aquinas, we just celebrated his feast day the other day on the 28th, he kind of summarized in our tradition of theology a definition that really brings that out. The definition of love, to love someone, is to desire their good. And you might have heard Father Luke and I mention that before. That's what loving somebody is, to desire their good. And so that means whether they're just doing them or whatever that phrase is nowadays, I'm going to do me. If that's what they choose to do, we might see through that, through our lens, our filter of Christianity, through what Jesus taught us, you can do that, but it's harming you. It's putting you down a path that's going to lead to unhappiness, and we would even say possibly the culture of death even. Whether right now you think it makes you happy, we've seen in the wisdom of the church that's destroying your life. And so if we desire their good, if we love them, we're going to try to help them with that. Now there's an opposite way where believing these things and trying to live that way where we can get it twisted up. The devil's very good. He's very clever at what he does. So even if we try to live that way, we desire the good of our neighbor, of our spouse, of our children, and we try to kind of help them through life with all these different things, it can be distorted still. That good desire can be distorted. And what happens is we place the priority of the rule over the commandment to love. So then the rules become more important than compassion, than patience, than discipleship, walking along the journey with them. And it can really, in unfortunate cases, people who struggle with that, where the rules take the priority, then it can feel like they have this permission to be mean, where kindness falls out the window, or patience falls out the window, where compassion falls out, where we feel like we have this license now to be rude or to be mean because they're breaking the rule, but I love you, so I'm going to yell at you until you understand what I'm saying. But that's not good. That's not what loving our neighbor truly is, because love is bigger than just following the rules. It includes a lot more things. It takes a lot more delicacy a lot of times. It really takes conversion of heart and falling on our knees before Jesus, learning how to live like him, to truly love this way and to not fall into that distorted way. Because it can start with meanness, then it can start to turn into despising somebody, and then often, and I see it all the time, I hear it in the confessional all the time, it can turn, because somebody is hurting themselves or starts to believe something we don't believe, it can turn to a hatred. A hatred that really, the only person that affects is ourselves. When we start to hate our neighbor because of something that they're doing, a way of life they have chosen, it might hurt them as well, but it's really eating us away. It hurts our heart. It prevents us and puts a wall between us and the Lord ourselves that we need to confess, again, Lord, I hate my neighbor. I hate this person or that person. I hate what I see going on. Again, when we're loving properly, when we truly are trying to live like Jesus, we can prevent that from happening. So we have those kind of two things that can happen, and there's another one that this one's been around forever, and I want to use just that inspiration from that obscure song I mentioned, that I kind of rewrote some other lyrics to plug in for this kind of third type of person that might be a little bit of all of us, but it lives very strongly in others in our society. And so this I'm going to use that song again. And so these are the lyrics I wrote that were inspired by you, I guess. I don't know. Or me. Or the church. You decide. But it goes, all I need is me. Dun, 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 dun. Y'all are supposed to join in. All I need are my things. Dun, 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 dun. If I could have my way every day. Oh, is there a horn in that part? I'd be happy. So that's a third type of person. And what that person is our inherent pride. That's what prevents us from loving like Jesus, is that pride that we've had from the fall that we are trying our whole life to destroy. It's that desire for our own self-interest, a desire to be on top, to put ourselves before our neighbor, that selfishness that lives within us, that creeps in when we're not feeling well or when we don't feel like praying. That's where we start to become that person that all I need is myself. And if I have my way, if I get all the things that I want to get, I might be happy one day. And so that's the biggest lie that anybody could fall into. So it's a tough thing. It's hard work to kill that part of us, to destroy that part of us. But if we don't try to work on that, if we don't eventually let Jesus assist us in destroying that part of our heart, of our soul, it's going to destroy us. That's that ultimate sin, the kind of the principal sin of pride. If we don't destroy it, it's going to destroy us and cause serious problems for us. When we get to the point in life where we have to face the Father, and He might say, "How much did you love?" But then He's going to look at a lot of other things of how much did I love myself too much. That's all part of this same process of divinization, of becoming like God, becoming like Jesus, which He's invited us to become. But it's in humility. It's a reverse of like what we might see and other gods in our life might become. It's what Jesus shows us who God is, which is a total self-sacrifice of our lives. And so Jesus is dealing with these people all throughout the Gospels, these different personalities and many, many more. That's just, and we see it very clearly. There's probably these three personalities and other types. We see at the beginning, they're amazed. It's a continuation of last week's gospel. They're amazed that he's come, he's read the prophet Isaiah, he's going to fulfill this hearing in their midst, and they're amazed at these gracious words that he's going to do, and they have all their own preconceptions of what that means. They have their idea of what the new king, the Messiah, is coming to bring them, and if he doesn't become truly who they think he's supposed to be, what happens? They get filled with fury. They want to go and throw him out the brow of the hill, which is all a foreshadowing. Every time that happens to Christ, it's a foreshadowing of what does ultimately happen at Calvary when they do finally put him on the brow of the hill and nail him to the cross. So we have that among us, and it might be within ourselves sometimes, and we see it in our culture all the time. So there's certain, and this is another sign of the time, and our own, as Christians, our own relationship to our neighbor, which is everyone. There's nobody excluded from that category of neighbor. It's everybody who's not me is my neighbor. Whether we're close to them or really far away from them, they are our neighbors. So there's certain public figures, like Jesus was this public figure. He's presenting these messages to the crowd, and so that's us. And so we have public figures in our life, good and bad, and they present whatever messages they have. And what happens sometimes? These different personalities within us and amongst us, we sometimes want to kill them too. We build this hatred up. We might want to throw them down the brow of the hill because of what they're saying. And the same thing is happening to Jesus, and who was all good, who was goodness itself. And so what's the common denominator of all the people that disagree with whoever it is, good or bad? The common denominator is that person is not saying what we want to hear. That's always the common denominator. Now, we might, because we believe in the truth and they're preaching something against the truth, that might be the case, but the common denominator is still, they're saying something that I don't want to hear. But then we get to choose the response. And the response, if it goes to hatred, if it goes to wanting to throw them down the brow of the hill, that is what Jesus is trying to teach us. What St. Paul in the second reading today is trying to teach us is not the right answer. That is not how we love our neighbor, despite when we're faced with hatred or untruths or falsehoods, false gods, whatever the message somebody's giving us, the correct response is not going to be to hate and to kill or to murder or to throw down the hill. That's not what the Christian's response is. It's to love them. And so when we know what love truly is, and we understand the power that it has in our lives to truly love well, which to the point of death even, of our own death, not the death of the person, but our death, to stand in the truth and to stand in love, that's what it comes to. So we have these descriptions today that are so beautiful, even from Jeremiah. The first things, what we have to counteract this pride or this struggle that we have, how do we change the faults that we bring to the table in the world or to our families, this pride that comes out of us? We hear from St. Paul and from Jeremiah, faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love. And then those are just the theological virtues, but we can add on in our tradition all the cardinal virtues, the rest of them that really help us to live like Christ. So we have prudence and temperance and courage. We need all these virtues to help us live those three. And then also ultimately the one that remains always will be love. Love is the greatest, but it is not alone. It is not love alone. All these other things help us to live love correctly. So Jeremiah, I love this reading. It sounds like, when I read it, it sounds like a commander on a horse, like speaking to his battalion. And so for us, that's true. When the prophets speak, they're speaking on behalf of God, or we can hear it as God speaking to us as a father to his children, trying to inspire us to know our identity, to live in that identity, and to truly go out and battle sin and battle our culture that is wrong, but in a way of love, not a way of death, but a way of love and life, to bring them to life. And so, you could kind of feel that. Gird your loins. Stand up and listen to all that I command you. The fight against you will not prevail over you, for I am with you to deliver you. We've won the victory. So the prophet is trying to inspire the chosen people to know who they are, know they belong to God, know they are the chosen ones, know they have an important role in salvation that they must understand and live out and bring the rest of the world, all the nations, which eventually will culminate in the life of Christ and his message. So we have that inspiration that it should inspire our faith, that we can trust, that we know who we are in God, that we can have confidence that he's with us, he leads us, we will not die, we will prevail over the enemy, and we will win. So then it turns into this message of hope. When we know that we're going to win, how do you lose hope? When we know the victory is ours, if we follow this path, if we listen to our commander, how do we lose hope? And so we have faith and hope already from the Old Testament even. If we can grasp our identity and live that out and know that Jesus is victorious, and then love, again, still remains. And then Paul, we hear it a lot in weddings. Every wedding we do, pretty much 90% of them choose this reading, a portion of it, that's this definition of love. And it ties very closely to what Jesus showed us by his life, that love is not about ourselves. It's completely opposite. It's to give of ourselves unto death. It's not pompous, it's not jealous, it's patient, kind, gentle, all these things. That's what love truly is. So when we are called to love, whether it's our spouse, our children, those usually are easier people to love in our life, but then we have our neighbor who might annoy us, we have the news anchor, we have the politician, whatever it might be. Our response is to love like Christ and to journey and to try to have compassion, and then by our witness, by our words, by our attempt to love them well like Jesus, and not hate, but to walk with and to preach the truth and to bring them to the deeper beauty that God came to reveal to us, that they are, living a path that's going to go somewhere else. That loving them well, wanting their good, seeking their good can really bring, hating them is never going to do anything. It's going to just continue to lead towards the brow of the hill. But when we love with compassion, that still may never do anything. It might never change their heart, but it's still going to be the best opportunity to reveal to them the love of Christ by your love for them, by you laying your life down for them, by even serving and loving those who either hate you or persecute you. So we pray this week as we continue through ordinary time, ordinary people though we might be, God has extraordinary plans for us. And if we love like Jesus every day, if when we fall short and we confess, we get back up and we try to continue in the battle, he'll do great things. We have to trust in the Father, trust that he has this plan, and trust that he's given us this prophetic power, this prophetic grace, that when we love well, we will change our world.